don't think we need to sell those off.
This is a short-term solution to a very long-term problem. You will get a spike, obviously, when you sell something, you'll have the money, the cash on hand at that moment, but that's not a long-term revenue stream. That's a totally unsatisfactory answer to where our budget concerns are. And Commissioner Maio likes to often point out that a third of our county is conserved, and that's plenty. A third of our county land, that's good enough. But if we build out, without changing any zoning right now, if we build out exactly as it is laid out in the future land use map, there will be over 1 million residents in our county, and we will still only have a third of our land protected as green space. That should raise every eyebrow in this room right now. That's unacceptable. And we don't even compare to some of our neighboring counties that have some 60% of their lands in their county that are currently protected, and if they build out, it's not feasible. It's not a solution to a consistent shortfall in budget. It's a short-term solution.
I'm going to move to a topic that's near and dear to all our hearts, red tide. We've all talked about it endlessly recently, and I've got a little bit of a preamble to the topic, asking if you are aware that the nitrogen levels which fuel the toxic red tide algae have been trending upward and increasing in our bays for at least the last 20 years, documented and based on the data from the Sarasota County Water Atlas, and that stormwater ponds only reduce about 40% of the nitrogen by new development based upon the state of Florida's own data. In addition to encouraging existing residents to use less fertilizer, etc., and making additional public and taxpayer investments to reduce nutrients, would you commit to doing all you can to make sure that the stormwater rules for new development are updated so they may pay their fair share?
Yes. That was easy. Nitrogen definitely is a factor in contributing to the nutrient outflow that's feeding red tide. I think it's been documented. I know Marine has stated over and over again that nutrients are feeding the bays. As far as new development goes, I think currently our stormwater cleaning system and what we have as far as pumps and cleaning the retention ponds and things are not sufficient, and they're not tested and monitored often enough. We should be updating the pumps and things like that actually would filter quicker and get the nutrients processed through. I think we have to make sure that new development has the most up-to-date quality performance systems to clean the waters. We can't go on the way we are currently. You've seen the devastation to our bays. It's to our businesses, it's to our livelihoods. I mean, we have people who work in the service industry that haven't had normal paychecks in months. They're either wanting to move out or they're going, into foreclosure. So we have to be careful and mindful of that. So yes, we do have to make sure that we have better standards, we test more often, and actually do more than best practices for our county, because the result is devastating.
I suspect you watched John Thaxton's presentation from over this weekend. Yes, in a word. Our county monitors our water quality in various bays all over the county, and for 20 years they have known that nitrogen levels in our bay have been on the rise. If you go on the county water atlas, it, in plain English and a very colorful graph, will show you exactly that. They have known that this is an issue for quite some time, and indeed the state did know that. And in 2010, they developed a total rehaul of how we should be treating our stormwater. They recognized that this was a problem almost 10 years ago. And as state would have it, Rick Scott got elected and killed it before it was even heard. So we have known that this is an issue. We know the ramifications of these decisions. And we have, at many levels of government, I dare say all levels of government, dropped the ball. This is not acceptable from elected officials at all. I just over the weekend toured a couple retention ponds that have algal blooms in them right now, and 40% of the nutrients that are supposed to be filtered out, that's completely unsatisfactory. And we have known the data, we know how to fix the problem, and we have known that for 10 years. So I would love to know why our county commission and their staff collects this data, why, knowing it, they continue to say that this is a media issue, that red tide is a media problem, that the media is blowing it out of proportion. This is an ecological crisis. This is not a time to be, on Wednesday they're talking about banning recreational marijuana, which for that I cannot understand when we're facing very real issues, why they're trying to preempt and grandfather in some sort of silly law, why their attention is there instead of where it ought to be. I think it's a complete shame. They should be shamed.
Should the commission be contemplating allowing the scuttling of decades of intense community planning, such as the Fruitville Initiative, at the closing of north-south road connections without community input? I don't know if you're aware of the fact, but FDOT is proposing to introduce diverging dimings at the intersections with Fruitville, Bee Ridge, and they're going to intend to go right down the west coast of 75 with that. A diverging diamond is a intersection that takes an enormous amount of land in order to create it. It isn't as efficient with land use as, say, a roundabout or even the existing intersections. The county commission has a role in this, and they will be partners in making the decision with FDOT. How would you stand?
Well, I think if you look at the divergent diamond up on University and the traffic it's caused up on I-75, I would have to say no. And then based on all the land that it did take up, we have wetlands, we have protected areas, to actually have to pave over that to put divergent diamonds, I'm disagreeing with that. I don't think we should, and I don't think it makes a good neighbor in the sense of traffic flows and things like that, and we just would take up too much land for that. I think we should have a better solution than divergent diamonds. I'm not a fan of those.
I actually completely disagree for once. I went to college at New College of Florida at the end of university. I spent way too many hours at the intersection of 75 and University, and the diverging diamond did help, although it is a bit of a white knuckle experience. It's very bizarre to be driving on what is the wrong side of the road, even if it's only for a moment. I don't think that the county should scuttle things like the Fruitville Initiative and projects like that, but you know, if I had a dime for every time someone had complained about traffic to me, I could fund this campaign. So, you know, we can't have it all at the end of the day. There has to be a give and a take, and that's what politics is compromising and finding the best case scenario for as many people as humanly possible. So if you're a person that is complaining about traffic, which I dare say everyone in this room has at one point or another, we do need to look at, you know, where we can give and take. And it's not as efficient with land use, but I don't think anyone's building under the intersections of 75 anyways, at least it shouldn't be. So that land is there. So I can't say whether I would support it or oppose it right now. It's come down to the details of the plan. I'm open to it. I think we all deserve to not pull our hair out at every red light. And I'd be open to exploring it. So.
One thing you didn't touch on was the fact that at Fruitville, it will be cutting off north-south roads to the east of the intersection and to the west.
I would have to look at the specific plan. I would say I would have to look at the specific plan.
All right. Keep the microphone, Wesley. Should density on Siesta Key be increased to accommodate hotels?
I think we're reaching a critical moment in our country where we're going to have to ask ourselves if it is even acceptable to be building on barrier islands at this point. We know that sea level rise is happening. This is not a secret. This is not a political he said, she said kind. This is a fact, and it has demonstrably been happening right here in our bay for decades. So by 2030, we're looking at about 5 to 6 inches of sea level rise by 2030. So with that, at high tide, that lovely new parking lot that we spent all of that money on by the South Bridge of Siesta, at high tide, that will have water on it. So I think not only is it a safety hazard to approve increased density, I think it's a safety hazard to be building out there on some respects anyways, but especially when we're talking about re-nourishing and the multi-million-dollar projects that re-nourishment are. I just think we need to be better stewards of our barrier islands, and just recently our county commission approved a home 100 feet seaward of our Gulf setback line. So that cannot happen. We can't keep making those decisions.
I would echo what Wesley said. I don't think on Siesta higher density should be permissible. We already see, as she said, issues with water and rising tides, but we also have a critical amount of traffic in that area. It's already unbearable, and then if you, God forbid, should have any kind of a natural disaster to move out more people because there's a higher density on that island, you're just asking for more trouble. So I think for many reasons, whether it's environmental and also human protection side of overbuilding, it should not happen.
What are your suggestions for the county parcels at the celery fields?
Well, I think for the celery fields, I don't think we should allow a crushing plant to be adjacent to a bird sanctuary, a place where people bring their families, because all of a sudden you're going to bringing in dust and God knows what kind of chemicals into the airways there, and you have families that go there and bring families and play and children, and rather than utilizing it for some commercial monstrosity, I think we should make it congruent with the area. We have a beautiful place there. Right now, we have red tide. We can't go to the beach. You can't take your kids to the beach. So what do? You're going to take them to celery fields, because you know what? It's something else to do in Sarasota. It's beautiful. It's natural. We have birds. I would love to see some of the proposals that the residents came up with, whether it's having a YMCA or something that's more congruent with the area, that suits the residents, that gives children a better place to play outside. A lot of times what you see in the developments in those areas as well, those developments are not children friendly per se. They're residential homes. They don't have a lot of playground areas. So young families don't have a place to have their kids play on this. They have to play on their street, literally, in many of those subdivisions. So at least if you build something on the celery fields that all families could utilize, you're talking a lot of developments that would bring their children, and they already currently do. So I'm with getting as much input from the residents. They live there, we work here, we want to stay here, and we want to make sure it's healthy here and healthy for our children. And I don't think we need a crushing plant on the celery fields, and we should just give more credit to the residents of having great ideas and some really wonderful proposals.
Yeah, I think Fresh Start has done a phenomenal job, and an example of what citizen input can and really should look like. They put in an immense amount of work into collecting different proposals. I'm partial to the YMCA one. I think it satisfies the needs of kind of honoring that space as a recreational space, but also providing, a source of revenue for the county, which if they're going to keep saying, well, we have to sell it for revenue, I think that's a fine reason to keep it then, right? So I know on Wednesday they're going to have a discussion about whether they're going to rezone it as an industrial use or not, and I think that's just completely wrong. I would vote against that when I am sitting in Commissioner Maio's seat. He's keeping it warm for me right now, but I think that's just wrong.
If you are not elected to the Board of County Commissioners, will you continue to help shape county decisions, and how will you remain involved?
Well, I've been an activist in Sarasota for 20 years, so I co-founded a free medical clinic for uninsureds. I belong to a large women's interfaith group. I believe in giving back to our community. I always have, I always will. I don't foresee that changing. I would fight to have better representation on every level of government. I think after running this race, and I ran another race, I think looking at the money that it takes for a candidate to run is so incredulous, and it's such a hurdle, and all it does is it takes barriers, it builds barriers, because we have, if you go out into the public and you speak with people, there's so much amazing talent in Sarasota County, yet they're stifled to run and represent our county and represent people, whether it's the developers or whether it's the money, or all these barriers are there. And I would truly think, I would become an advocate for pushing to get better people elected and better representation, because we really do have some tremendous talent. And a lot of times when you speak with them, they're like, you know what, I don't want to, I'm like, why don't you run? You're brilliant, you know, and you know, you'd be fantastic and you have passion and caring. And they're like, well, it's going to cost $200,000 to run. I can't do it. And then I don't want to drag my family through all of this, and I don't want all of this. And there's so many barriers. So I think I would still be active as a community activist. I know that I'd go out to all the meetings more so for celery fields and other things now, because truly in meeting with people in Venice or Northport, I truly do care about people. So for me, you see the passion of voters, and you see the care that they have, and it impacts their life so much on a daily basis, that for me now, even if I don't run, their passion has become some of mine. So I would stand with the people in Venice to protest in celery fields, just because these issues hit close to home for so many people, and now I'm vested, so I have to kind of fight a little bit more either way, even if I lose.
Yeah, I'll be here. I'm a native Floridian. I was born and raised in Tampa. I came down here to go to college, but I come from a very long line of public servants in this area. My mom just last week got her 25-year pin for working at the VA in Tampa. My grandpa was an FBI agent in St. Pete. My great-great-uncle was the first ever city manager of St. Pete. I come from a long line of people that live to serve this area, and I will continue to do that, because there are so many issues. We're reaching a really critical time in our county, and there's so much work that needs to be done. I would not be able to sleep at night if I was not being active in the solution.
Wonderful. Now, would you both make a closing statement? Wesley, go ahead.
I think if you're satisfied with the direction that we're going in now, I'm probably not your candidate. But if you are unsatisfied, if you feel like you're not being heard, if you feel like we can improve, if there's a better way forward, then I encourage you to vote for me, Wesley Ann Beggs, in November, or if you already have your vote by mail ballot, sooner rather than later, because I can stop calling you and knocking on your door and trying to chase that ballot down. We need now more than ever someone that's leading from the future and not from the past. We are facing a lot of issues that for the first time counties are having to deal with, whether it's sea level rise or our young professionals, which are woefully underserved. We do a wonderful job of educating them. We're a college town. I just don't think anybody knows it. But we have so many wonderful colleges here that do such a great job of educating our young people, and then we export all of that talent off. There's the jobs from personal experience. There's very little job competition here. It's hard to live here. Rent is really unaffordable. So I think we need to shift away from exporting all of our young talent, because it's just not a sustainable economic model. We have an aging population. We have a nursing shortage, you know, because the nurses can't afford to live here. They live out in Arcadia, and then they come into Sarasota Memorial Hospital. That's a true story I heard at the door of a woman whose daughter lives in Arcadia and can't afford to live in our county but works in our county. We need to elect better people, as I said earlier, at every level of government that can and will show up for you, that can and will listen and act and for the best interests of our community. That's what we need now more than ever, and I hope to be that choice in this upcoming election.
Well, the only thing I'd like to leave you with, I know it's a partisan race, it's Democrat versus Republican, but I truly, in my heart of hearts, don't believe a county commissioner race is a partisan race. We live in the same area. We are neighbors. If a hurricane hits, you're going to go help your neighbor. You're not going to ask your neighbor, are you a Democrat, non-party affiliate, Republican? No, you're going to go roll up your sleeves, go to their house, lift the tree, help them out, take their grandmother if she needs a ride to the hospital. County commissioners should work with all residents, regardless of party. We care about the same things. We want to make sure we have decent infrastructure. We want to make sure our environment's protected. We want to make sure that all of us have fair representation, regardless of what party you're affiliated with. We want to make sure our voices are heard. I want to make sure that we don't cave and cater to developers only. We want to make sure we cater to you. You're the constituents. Your vote actually beats the developer money. Just make sure you talk to your neighbors and your friends to vote, because you have the power to make the change over the developers. We're tied, our hands are tied in messaging. We can't hit 400,000 people in a county, but you know what? If all of you go out and you truly believe that somebody's going to represent you in the correct way, speak to those neighbors, and regardless of party, regardless of anything, please. And then November 6th, tell them to vote for Ruta Jouniari. Thank you.
And thank you all for attending.